As a veteran, small business owner, what can we do for you?
What we can all do for all veteran business owners is promote each other.
My main mission was to look at tools of technology to leverage small business and give them more of a competitive advantage.
My mission for Veteran Bargains is very simple: to help vets.
That story in itself, to run for Vista City Council, is a journey.
I think this is an opportunity to really collaborate with those gone before us.
It's really kind of a labor of love.
And now your host.
Happy Friday. Thank you for joining us once more here at the Veterans Radio Show and Podcast. We're so proud to bring you leaders putting in really telling out the stories and making the action happen. On this particular episode, we have some incredible leaders here from the local Southern California, as well as we are traveling to Tennessee. So without further ado, I also want to acknowledge that we have our sponsors in the back, as well as we have our founder and CEO, Joseph Molina, our show producer, Michael Wood, and then we also have monitoring our comments, our engagement management, Dali Rivera. Without further ado, I'm going to bring in our guests so that I can talk about them. And while they are in the room, I'm going to bring in out here in the weekly show. And on this particular episode, we have retired Army Lieutenant Colonel Dennis Schroeder, who is the founder of the Price of Freedom Foundation. His foundation tells complete stories of those who pay the ultimate price for our freedom. So make sure that you stay tuned and then you put in your comments. U.S. Navy veteran, author, and business owner, Trevor French, who's also here. He's an investor. He's a philanthropist, podcast host, virtual speaker. He is helping veterans and those out in our community acquire perpetual income, making sure that they're building a good financial path, as well as they generate wealth for themselves. So thank you so much for joining us. And also a big shout out and a warm greeting to our co-host, Shelly Harrison. Hope she's doing better and that we are missing her. Hope to have her here soon. Thank you. Where's everyone? Let's bring in everyone there we go. Perfect. So Tyrone French, and then I have Mr. Dennis Schroeder, and I have our founder and CEO, Joseph Molina. So gentlemen, good afternoon. How's everybody doing today?
Doing great. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for joining us. So,
great. Glad to be here.
Yes, I'm glad that you made it. And this is our second tryout for Tyrone. So I'm very happy to hear all of what he has to share with us, because wealth and opportunities of wealth, as well as a good path into that particular track, is very important for our military community. Now, but first, I want to go in and introduce Dennis and give him just a brief overview so that he can tell us a little bit about himself and how is life in Tennessee.
Well, yeah, my name is Dennis Schroeder. Thank you again for the opportunity to be here today. Life in Tennessee is great. It's kind of it's sunny outside. You can see pouring in through the window. A little chilly, but we've lived here for several years and we love it here. My background was 24 years in the Army as a medical service corps officer, and came from a Navy family and have two children who've served, one in the Air Force and one in the Army. So the veteran is very important to me.
Absolutely. And then I also want to give an initial spotlight for Tyrone to also introduce himself. And then we'll hear a little bit more about him towards the second section of the segment. And so if he's still active here, yes, tell us about you and your, just a little briefly about your history or your ties here. How is San Diego treating you for it?
Tyrone, I'm here in Long Beach, California.
Oh, Long Beach, that's right.
Yes,
that's right.
Can you hear me?
Absolutely.
Yeah, Long Beach, California. Sunny Long Beach, about 80 degrees out here. In ROTC when I'm years old. So I was going to the Navy right after high school. And I joined the Navy at 18 years old. And it was the best decision I ever made in my life.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much. And then I also want to give just a small segment or spot for our CEO, who can come back and officially greet you, gentlemen. So he is the founder and CEO of our chamber, and he is the reason why we are here conducting this particular live session, as well as the radio show and all the programming behind the scenes. So Joseph Molina, will you join us? He disappeared on us. Okay. He camera went off. Okay, that's what happens when you are doing live stuff. So, okay, that's fine. Without further ado, I'm going to go straight to Dennis and then allow us to have a discussion about his first story and his military story that comes to life, as well as his life over there, his action and his work that he's doing for our military community. So, Mr. Dennis, tell us a little bit about you and the first story that comes in mind as far as your ties to the military and your experience.
Okay, well, thank you. I guess my first thought and first memory of being tied to the military was my very first memories as a child. My father was in the Navy. He was an enlisted man. He was retired as a Master Chief Petty Officer, machinist's mate. And my first memories at all were being in a house, Navy housing. And I think it was in a base in Aberdeen, Washington, which closed many years ago. But I grew up in the Navy family at Navy bases, primarily in San Diego, but also Great Lakes Naval Training Center. And I knew that I wanted to pursue the military life. My father retired from the Navy when I was in high school. And so I had that sense of being out of the military as well. When I was in high school, I joined the Sea Cadets, and the Sea Cadets were kind of a pathway towards the Navy. I really wanted to be in Blue Water Navy, but my father had advised me early on that if I was going to go in the military, he said I should go and try and become an officer. He said, but don't be like most of them, listen to your NCOs. So so I was glad that I followed his advice in that way. So, but I'd applied for Annapolis and I'd applied for West Point, and Annapolis turned me down because they said, I have defective color vision. Same thing happened with ROTC scholarships. So they said they actually offered me a scholarship, but said I would have to take the Marine option. And at that time, I love Marines, but at that time, that wasn't what we had in mind at all. So fortunately, the Army came through with a scholarship, and I entered the Army after college through ROTC, and then spent the better part of 22 years from 1978 to 2000 at various different locations around the country. I was a Medical Service Corps officer and had various different field and staff assignments. And then retired in 2000. 11 years later, I was asked to return to active duty and did a 2-year retiree recall at Fort Knox. And that was my last time on active duty.
Well, what an incredible story and path, career path that you've had. And I was going to ask you why Army if your dad was Navy, but you did summarize that pretty well. Because that usually, you tend to be pulled into the same background or the same group as your parents tend to do that. So I'm usually Army, Marines. So I'm glad that you had a good experience and you were able to expand your career a little bit further. Now, right now, you're still serving in a way, right? You do this incredible work out in our community. Tell us a little bit about your foundation and what do you do?
The Price of Freedom Foundation is dedicated to telling the life story of those of our comrades in arms that never got to be a veteran, those who paid that ultimate price for our freedom and died while in military service. And so what we do is we work with the families of the fallen. We get their permission to tell that story first. And everything that we do is centered around the needs of that family. We interview the family. We find as many people outside the family that knew their lost loved one as possible. We interview each of them. We record all of those interviews, and we give those recordings to a biographer who will write a full story from beginning to end and produce that in both print and digital forms. We give archival quality, or basically legacy copies of the books to the families, so that they can have something that will be passed down to future generations. Because we are a Tennessee-based nonprofit, we will be giving ebooks to the Tennessee Public Library System at no cost, and the books we give to the families are at no cost to them as well.
That's fantastic. So tell us about a story that you have got. What is the furthest back in time that you've been able to go back and make a transition or a life, transition of a service member that you have?
Actually, we haven't. We are still new. We are still in the process of working with families. We have our first family that we believe we're going to be working with, that we're having discussions about the legal release, and so we're changing language in that to make it acceptable to them. I mean, our whole intent was never to be like most folks in film and TV, where it's like these long legal documents that are just like terms of service agreements for websites. It's like, who reads those? And that's not our intent, because we know that people who are working with us, talking with us, if they're talking to me, no matter how long ago they lost their loved one, it's as though it was yesterday. So
Right.
I know they're going to be in a place of emotional distress. And so our intent in drafting the release that we have was to make it as plain and simple as possible, to meet the requirements that we would have to be able to go forward and produce books, produce videos, because we really, in addition to the books, we want to produce videos about their lost loved one, because the books will take care of a need for future generations, but there's a need currently that is unmet. And that is that most military survivor families, 6 months to a year after their loved one has passed away, has the sense that they've been forgotten and that their sacrifice is not honored. So by producing documentary style videos of various lengths, that we'll be able to tell that story honestly, respectfully, and that will address that problem, because more people hearing their story from a third party perspective will go a long way towards helping with that grieving process.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the future generations, maybe within the family or children, grandchildren, and whatnot, they will be able to then read and view the legacy of what that loved one did for them and for us, for our country. And so that's a really good way to capture. Now, tell me about challenges. What are some, as a business owner, because this is not necessarily a business, you are a nonprofit, you're doing a great service to our community, but you do in a way sort of have to operate it as a business in a way, and we are a veteran chamber of commerce. So what are some of those challenges that you are experiencing that you can share so others may be able to relate to your story?
Sure. Well, I had the experience of being a small business owner previously. So I had a sense going into this of the things that I would need to be able to do. You have to tend to the fundamentals first. You had to make sure that all of the legal requirements, the forming of the organization. In the case of a nonprofit like ours, you had to get a board of directors first before you can even form the corporation. Then we had to be able to get the word out, and without a lot of funds available, that's a challenging thing to do. And about the time that we had started this process, the employment that I'd had went away, so there went a lot of other resources that I would have had that I could have funded myself. So I'd say that the biggest challenge here was that we are getting a lot of verbal approval, but everybody else is in a challenging situation too, and so the financial support has been challenging. And then there's also the sense that this is not something that anyone else has really done, except on a case-by-case basis. Individual families have created these memorials for their lost loved one, but no one's been outside of the Library of Congress and their Veteran History Project have not attempted to do something on such a scale as this. So I know there's also the sense that, well, let's wait and see how you do. before we step in and back you. And that's what we're hoping to prove with this first family, is that we can do this. We can do this in a way that's respectful, honoring, and is going to be able to be compelling for other people.
And what is one thing, or how can our community help you and empower those stories for you?
Well, I think that the biggest thing that the veteran community can do as a whole is to first of all to reflect upon themselves, this mission that we're on, and if there's anything about it that that you are feel compelled to, that draws you, that we can use your support, whether that's sharing us on social media, giving us some kind of endorsement in that regard, whether it's volunteering your time and your talents with us. We have needs for writers, filmmakers, graphic artists. We'll need musicians at some point. We'll need pretty much any skill that you can bring to the table with us, or whether it's supporting us financially. I would say that go to our website, go seek us out on social media, and support us in whatever way you're called to.
There it is, and it's the priceoffreedomfoundation.org. We have that website, the link on top. So that's fantastic. So then what's next? What are some of your 2021? We're still pretty early into 2021. What's your 2021 goal, wish, or I guess you can say resolution, if there is such a thing in our world?
Well, my goal for this year is to get 5 stories started. In order to do this correctly and thoroughly, we believe it's going to take about a year from the time that we start working with the family until the time that we have a completed biography for them. So if we can have 5 families that we are working with and in process of creating that story, I feel that we'll be successful this year. I mean, the need is much larger than that, obviously. I mean, there's been literally tens of thousands of our fellow service members who have given their life in service to our nation over the past 50 years. And so, but we have to take steps that we can. And so for us this year, if we can get 5 stories underway, then I feel we'll be successful.
That's fantastic. And are you looking for any specific, to get started with any specific branch of service, or are any
service? I've had contacts with about a half dozen families thus far. Most of them have not indicated that they were ready to move forward at this time, but there were half of them were Navy families, and so we're I come from a Navy background. I had Army experience, but every person who served is a brother or sister at arms, and for me, this really ties back into just the whole sense that every person who sacrifices like this should be remembered. And I mean, I'm glad that we've had people like Pat Tillman, whose family was able to create the Pat Tillman Foundation and is doing great things. But there's hundreds and hundreds of others that never get that kind of attention. Nobody really knows their story, and we want to make a change in that.
So for those of us who are a little bit more visual and we like to listen versus going directly to the website to read for the instructions, give me just briefly, what are some of those guidelines? Who qualifies, or who is a good candidate? Whose family is a good candidate for this project?
Any person who died in active military service or died as a result of illness or injury that separated them from service. So that would be, of course, any combat casualties, but people who died in training accidents, people who died in traffic accidents, people who died from contracting a terminal illness and died in the hospital. and even suicides. I mean, suicides, military suicides are a terrible tragedy. And I believe personally that if we can tell those stories and we tell them with compassion and understanding, that we might even be able to make a difference in those numbers, because it's having been around situations where we knew that a soldier had committed suicide in units that I was assigned to. It's horrible, and I want to make a difference in that. And I believe those families are probably even more shuttered than others.
Absolutely, because when you think of a casualty, you normally think of when you go actually overseas to combat, not necessarily here at home. And when those situations happen, it's really heartbreaking to try to figure out what happened or what. So being able to preserve or look at the story a little bit further, with like you said, with more compassion, I think it will be very amazing to be able to have that for the kids, for the family, for anyone within the community that will be able to just review and honor that service member. So
right,
thank you.
Absolutely.
So what's next? What can we do? We get here together to wrap it up. What can we do for you to really amplify it and to continue to support you through the Veteran Chamber of Commerce and or to our community?
Well, you're doing great here with this. I appreciate it, really, I do, because getting the word out is really probably the most significant thing that can help us, because most people, we're new, we're a small organization in north central Tennessee, and people in far-flung parts of the country and the world just don't really know about us. So that's the number one thing. But I'd say that follow-ons would be any sort of things where we can network with other veteran-owned organizations, businesses, to see how we can maybe support each other. And as I mentioned before, we have a need for just about anything that somebody feels a heart to help us with.
Great. Yes, absolutely. So thank you. And we're going to get ready to wrap it up. If anybody, reviews this or watches the replay, make sure that you connect as well with Dennis. And it's going to be, it's on LinkedIn, it's on YouTube, as well as on Facebook. Make sure that you follow. And it's the Prize on Freedom Foundation. More details will be sent out, as well as a newsletter, and then more follow-up. So this is an open forum for you for support. Anytime you need anything, please just reach out, and we'll be happy to amplify your message through all of our chapters throughout the states.
Thank you so much, Laura.
Great, absolutely. And then we're going to go right now and wrap it up. And you're welcome to stay and listen as well as Eileen's story at Miss Texas, who is doing some incredible work out in the community in regards to human trafficking. And she's going to join us with our CEO and founder, Joseph Molina. And I'm going to call them on so that they can come in and join me, and we can talk about this particular initiative that is going on behind the scenes, as well as for this particular her cause, her work. And she has a very, very specific event coming up, and we want to talk about that as well. Hello.
Well, thank you very much, Laura.
How are you guys doing?
Good. I love your background.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis, for your presentation, and look forward to working with you. And Eileen, welcome to the show.
Welcome, Miss Eileen.
And
Thank you, Mr.
yes,
Molina, Ms. Torres.
a little introduction. Eileen is working out of Texas.
Yeah.
She's a Miss Texas, and also our Veterans Chamber state delegate in the state of Texas. But we got connected a long time ago with Eileen. Eileen is an awesome entrepreneur, is an awesome connector. She loves working with the community. And then over the years, she started working also with her, I guess, fashion design and representation through the Miss pageant series. Now, currently, she's Miss Texas. But we also wanted to emphasize or highlight today the work that she's involved with, and that we are partnering with her on the sex trafficking, domestic violence, sexual abuse, which is something that 10 years ago, it was really hidden. It was in the shadows. And now we want to bring that light to it because it's more common than we thought. I never thought it was like this. And many people had no idea that sex trafficking and human trafficking and sexual abuse was so common in our communities. So Eileen, thank you very much for what you're doing on this effort. And working with Eileen, Laura, we also set up a national coalition of like-minded organizations who are focusing on preventing, defending, protecting, and also efforts to minimize and to bring to the light the horrible things of sex trafficking. So we are very happy to work with Eileen and also the other organizations within the coalition. Now, a coalition is just one coalition, but our goal with Hope Global is to create a coalitions and bring other coalitions on board. I think the strength is in the numbers. The strength is in the organization. The strength is on the focus, what each and every organization is doing to help prevent this. And our focus with Eileen is to serve as the light at the end of that tunnel, so survivors can see, or someone going through sex trafficking or domestic violence, they can see a light where there is an exit. That light, whether it's a phone call, whether it's whatever it is, that there's people on the other side willing and able and ready to protect, to serve as a filter and shield that person from that horrible thing. So Eileen, please give us welcome, and please give us a little bit of background about what the organization does and what we're currently doing to support the community in Texas, but also in the United States.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. It is my honor to be here. Thank you, Mr. Molina, for this opportunity. Yes, Hope PYX Global is a 501c3 organization that is based currently out of Houston, Texas. Our long-term goal is to work nationally and globally, and we are already, with the help of thousands and a lot of supporters, including Mr. Molina, yourself, we are now working and collaborating with organizations alike and like-minded supporters already. The organization supports victims and survivors from all backgrounds, regardless whether they have immigration status or not, regardless of their nationality, regardless of their race and nationality and gender and anything, because the crime can hurt anyone. Anyone can be a victim, regardless of your age, your gender, your nationality, social and economic status. And I wanted to let you know that this is happening in our backyard, and this is happening to everyone. People might have the conception that a woman is only the victim. A child can be the victim, but men can be victims as well. Statistics shows that the ones that are identified victims, 80% are US citizens and 28% are our children. So we want to let you know that you can be a potential victim. And that's why we are here for, to raise the awareness so that we can prevent this from happening to you. This month is the January Human Trafficking Awareness Month. So I'm wearing blue right now. And the Department of Homeland Security on January the 11th has announced as the National Wear Blue Day, aka hashtag Wear Blue Day. And in the state of Texas, the Governor Greg Abbott has this hashtag Texas Prays to End Human Trafficking. And there's another great organization based out of Atlanta. It's going to have another event this Saturday, and I'll be posting on the social media as well. You may follow me on Facebook, which is Miss USA Texas, MS USA Texas. And our nonprofit Facebook page is Hope PYX Global. On LinkedIn, you can find me as Eileen Dong, EILENDONG, just spelled at below. But we wanted to let you know that this month we have a series of events, educational events that are open and free to the public. And it is collaborating with both the National Veterans Chamber of Commerce, and thank you again for your support, with Hope PYX Global, as well as my show, the Miss Texas Show. In the series of events, I'm going to read out of my calendar now. So last week we had a Human Trafficking 101 for those who does not know what human trafficking is. Just this Wednesday, we aired this called Grooming and Recruitment Techniques on social media. This is a great show, and our special guest was Jen Edwards, and she has been seen on CNN, NBC, as well as Marie Claire, UK, Epoch Times, etc. So I strongly suggest that you go back to review on that. You can find us on the YouTube channel, www.youtube.com/C/the Miss Texas Show. It is MS. So you'll be able to watch the replay of this show premiering next week. Generally, we air the shows on Wednesdays, but I wanted you guys to make a notation next week because of the inauguration. We are airing on Tuesday, January the 19th at 8:45 p.m. And this is the show I strongly cannot emphasize for you to watch out for. The name of the show is called Meet Kate. Kate is one of our many survivors and advocates. Unfortunately, give you a short preview of the show. She was trafficked 17 times within a 4-year period of time. And she suffered the damage of property as well as monetary damage of almost $300,000. Not to mention her whole family, herself, 3 people involved. Herself, her son, and her daughter are the victim of the sex trafficking. She is actually a victim and still is a victim of sexual assault, military sexual assault. She was formerly a military member, and she is also a victim of sex trafficking. So I would strongly suggest you guys to watch out for that. Coming up next, will be airing Wednesday, January 27th. We have Miss Vicki Jackson, awesome advocate like all of you guys, and she is formerly with the anti-human trafficking task force with the LA Regional as well as Richland County. So I would like you guys to watch out for her to see what she is telling you about behind the scene, what they do, and from her aspect. Coming up next, I wanted to encourage you. I just did an interview with one of my many other sex trafficking survivors, and without you guys, we cannot be here today. And the purpose of this show is like what Mr. Molina said, we want to offer the light at the end of the tunnel. Same as the nonprofit organization, we want to give hope to the people and for them to see the light. Same as the show, it's hope, love, and unity. We wanted to provide a safe platform for our victims, survivors, and advocates to be on this platform, to feel free to share their stories, but most importantly is to empower the people that are still going through it and tell them that there is a light at the end of the tunnel.
Thank
And
you,
we
Eileen.
need you to share your love with them.
Yeah.
We need you to share your support with them. And that is why we provide this platform so that they can support each other as a platform and be united. I believe we are all global citizens, regardless where we are from, what our backgrounds are. And
Thank
this
you,
is
Eileen.
the short version of the situation of the stats of human trafficking. And I wanted to mention something really quickly. Victims of domestic violence, sexual assault are more likely to be trafficked as a human trafficking victim. So I want to offer you some useful resources about the hotlines.
Hey,
And the
Arlene,
hotlines for
let me.
human trafficking is the National Human Trafficking Hotline is 1-888-3737-888.
Thank you, Eileen.
Arlene,
And we will have a spotlight for you next week. We're going to be talking about all these things as well as potentially reviewing all the sessions that you announced, that you share with us. And we're definitely going to have a much bit, and we look forward to getting to know more about all the great work that you're doing next week.
And that's
Thank
that's
you
right,
so
Arlene.
much.
We're gonna have, this is the first segment. Next week we're gonna start the second segment.
Yes.
So looking forward to see you next week on Friday as well. Thank you, Arlene, for all you do. And Laura, back to you.
Thank you, Eileen. Looking forward to getting part 2 of all this great work that you're doing, and definitely
Thank you. It
amplify
is my honor. I
so
can't
that we
wait
can
to
get
see you
more
next week.
people involved and support you, and definitely provide more assistance to everyone who is suffering through this. Now, we're going to go back into our regular show programming, and we're going to bring our financial guru from Long Beach, who has been patiently waiting, and he has some great tips and just overall 2021 planning, or hopefully financial planning stuff to share with the veteran community. And his name is Trevor French. Very, very awesome name. Very fancy name for our community. And so is he still back on? Michael, can you? Oh, I believe he must have lost connection with him. So that's one of the things with his fast and yes.
Yes. Can you,
I can hear you. How you doing?
Laura, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Come on in and then let me know, share all the great wealth that you have to offer, and what exactly you're doing for our veteran community as well as our military.
Doing well.
Oh, we're having some connections with you.
Problems with the connection.
Yeah.
So why don't you tell us, Laura, what
I tell you, I love working with.
Why don't you tell us what Mr. French is doing with the veteran community before?
So he's the owner of Trevor French, which is a wealth coaching enterprise. He has built a team and has a community of financial advisors that support the community in general. But in his based on his ties to the U.S. Navy as a veteran, he has a great strong desire to support military veterans and service members, so that make sure that they are on the right track to retirement solutions, building wealth, as well as making sure that everybody's living a most affordable way, especially right here in Southern California. I thought that's usually the biggest challenge, right?
Well, absolutely, yeah. And I think that's very, very important for transition military to know. I mean, all of us, I mean, not all of us, but personal experience is, is like, you think you have enough money saved up, but by the time you get to the place and it takes a while to get the next job or whatever happens, not having a financial planning ahead of time strong enough to support it, we'll go through challenges. So having services like this is important. Do you know if he service particular areas or he's...
Well, right now he's in Southern California and Long Beach, but right now with COVID, of course, the community is open to anyone who is interested in meeting up and doing. He is a virtual speaker, so he can definitely connect with anyone virtually. Now, let me ask you, while we're getting back into the connection, how did you deal with the financial challenges back in your time? Because I don't know, when you transition as being a veteran, how were those services or those sort of outreach programs, were they even existent?
When I transitioned out, there was not really the services that we have today that were not really available, at least not with the units that I served. I served in Alaska, and when I signed my last checkbox out of and drove off the gate, that was the end of it. Then reported to the reserve units and all that kind of stuff. But there was nothing like that we have today. So that support wasn't there. So the challenges that we faced was, between, my wife and I, and preparing for the transition, but being in the military for such a long time, then the numbers change, the pricing change. I mean, especially in California, being in California and coming back to California, thinking that what we used to buy with $100, now you needed $300 or more.
Where do you live? I want to move over there. I need 500.
I know, right? But just a car, for example, a car was, before I left in the military, when I went in, buying a $15,000 car was like, oh, an amazing car. When I got back, that was not a deal anymore. So it was totally different. So the challenges were there for sure. So I wish I would have had someone before I left to kind of advise us on how to prepare, and not just right away, but having an ongoing preparation through the military. And I mean, the military does a great job. When you go in, they give you, they give you bonds, U.S. bonds. So I did have those bonds that were extremely helpful when I left, when I got out. Then I was able to tap into that resource. But besides those bonds, there was very, very few resources available.
But I'm glad that right now there's a ton of other education.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Support during and after, and even the after of the after. There's so much support, and that's why Tyrone. And in fact, we have his website, so that while he's trying to connect, we want to make sure that we are mindful of his support, and we share the spotlight as well. So we'll redefine. It's Trevor French Enterprises. And so make sure that you go on and that you connect with him. He provides all kinds of, making sure that you are getting close to your ultimate wealth goal. It's not a magical wand. You still have to do the work. You still have to prep. You still have to put in and set up a plan. But that's what his team does. They work with you so that you can figure out what is the best retirement, what is the life outcome as far as wealth building, or not necessarily wealth building either so much, but more of the sustainability of the income that you will need, so that in order for you to thrive in a good, comfortable way. And that's really what he does in his organization. And we're very happy to have his resource in our community and available for our veteran community.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I wonder if that's his boat.
Yes.
That's
attractive right there. That's
there.
what wealth is redefined.
We should do a chamber party there.
Yeah, and I believe he's back. His audio is back. So Tyrone, can you share with us what's the story behind this boat? Can we get that when we plan with you?
Yeah, I don't think so.
I think that's a no. I think that will require a lot of work.
The silence says it all.
Yes, absolutely.
So no, but I think it's a good idea to I mean, like, movie stars and people like that who go through the process. They need a coach, someone who's going to help them, like an agent, who's going to help them kind of prepare on the next stages in life. And I think something what Tyrone does, kind of serving like a coach for people to maximize their savings, increase their ability to create wealth, and also ability to create wealth in two different ways. Because once you start saving money, that gives you an opportunity to invest. And I think investing is the other side of it too. Invest in real estate, like I know you're an investor in real estate, or investor in a franchise, or starting a business or anything like that. But I think the starting point is like what Tyrone does. Let's first learn how to manage the dollars, how to manage that in a long range plan so we can have the stability and the peace of mind for ourselves and for our family. I think
absolutely. I mean, the first step usually is to have that consistency or that desire to build that emergency fund, which a lot of us usually lack, right? Once you move forward from that emergency fund, whatever that might be based on your family needs, is to start creating that path towards the wealth builder, or to a little bit of extra money, extra security for whether that's retirement,
What,
leisures or traveling.
right. Well, and how many months do you think a family should have in the savings accounts or preparation to be ready for an emergency? What's your rule of thumb?
According to my previous discussion with a financial guru,
Okay.
6 months at least. But
Okay. At least.
ideally, you want to go way beyond that as much as you can.
Mhm. Right. Right. Because we never know. We never know what we're going to do or how things are going to happen. And like today, I mean, now if you were a business owner and you can no longer bring customers and being able to sustain the family, not just the business, but sustain the family, that's also critical. So I think 6 months to a year, ideally will be a year, of course, but 6 months
You
would
know,
be.
sadly, when you are in active duty, it's so hard to build that fund. It's so hard to build it. It's so hard to really get to it or to even have a little reserve. I don't know what it is. It could be maybe the one single income for most families,
Right.
and all the moving that sometimes even though they tell you you do get the reimbursement, there's still a lot of out of cost
Oh
moving
my gosh,
pieces
yes.
that you encourage. So I
Mhm.
know we build it as we transitioned, but because I went to school full time, so all that extra VA housing allowance that I was collecting from the GI that he very generously donated to me, then that's how we were able to build that.
Right.
But it
So
was after 20 years.
yeah, after, right. No,
Yeah.
I can see especially individuals who are low ranking, which I mean, when we go in and we start at the bottom, there's no one starts as a general, no one starts as a captain. You got to start from the beginning, so or at least somewhere level. But it's not enough to really build in right away. But
Absolutely.
I think
And
that's
that's why individuals like Tyrone are out
absolutely
there, and so they can have those conversations. And sometimes are very uncomfortable conversations. Like last week, I
right.
met with someone about life insurance and other things that you might need as you continue to to grow into
Right.
older life situations.
Right.
But anyway, those are some of the things that Tyrone in his group of associates is able to help you. And I do have him back again into the mic. So let's
That's
see if we
fine.
can hear him. We'd
That's
love
good.
to be able to hear from him and really shared his product, not necessarily his product, I'm sorry, his resource to our community and how everyone can benefit.
Yeah, we have Tyrone on the line, so calling in on the phone now. Laura and Tyrone, go ahead, please.
So we did a good job sharing about your resource, Tyrone.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Tyrone.
Laura, can you hear me?
Yes.
Michael, I can hear you, but I can't hear Laura.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. So go ahead. Just real quick, Tyrone. Give us a little bit of what you do. Tell us what you provide and the best way we could reach out to you, Tyrone.
Well, basically, I offer wealth coaching, and what I've done was I've kind of unconditional or non-conditional. I redefine what wealth is. A lot of people think that when you have wealth, you have to have millions of dollars or multi-millionaire, almost billionaire status to be wealthy, and that's just not true. Wealth is defined based on how much income you have based on cash flow per month. And like you guys were talking in the show, as far as the rule of thumb is how much income should you have in an emergency. And so the status quo would say that you need to have about 6 months of reserve or savings for an emergency. Well, that's not realistic for the average American, because again, let's say if you're making, you need $4,000 a month to live. Well, what they're saying is that you need to have $24,000 in a reserve just sitting there, for an emergency, which again, that's not realistic for a lot of people. My rule of thumb is that you make sure that you have enough wealth coming in.
Which wealth is
income producing assets. You're wealthy when the income from your assets exceeds the expenses and your liabilities. And I'll give you an example. Let's say if somebody has a job And on that job, they're making $4,000 a month, but they have liabilities and expenses. Most people are just focusing on income and expense. So that $4,000 come in and it goes right out the expense column. Well, in financial terms, that is the cash flow pattern of a poor person, because all the money that's coming in for that month is going right out into the expense column. And so the same thing with the middle class. Middle class individuals, they're not just thinking about income and expenses. They're loaded up with liabilities that they think are assets, which a liability could be your home. It could be your mortgage payment, your car payment, your credit card payment. So again, they'll take the income from their job, and the first thing they'll do is they'll pay off their mortgage, which is being very responsible. They'll make their car payments, they'll pay their credit cards, and then they have their variable expenses, which, you know, your utilities, the water and things like that, food. But there's another class of individuals that I consider the wealthy class, and their income is generated from their assets. They don't work for money. They work to create assets that generate income for them. So they don't necessarily need a job.
Yeah, that's a really good advice, and I would love to invite you to do a part 2 through a meet and greet Zoom webinars for those that are interested in doing a little bit more, maybe not necessarily the live, but more enclosed session, so that we can definitely address all of these needs and be able to talk to our community in a more approachable way, so that everybody can bring their questions and do all these things. And I also like to bring in back Dennis, so that he can tell us about, you know, how he himself, life over in Tennessee, if he's still here, what that looks like out there, and what is the financial side of a service member or a retiree in that area. How do you guys manage out there? Is it as high cost living as it is in California?
Unmute myself here. Thankfully, this is a very moderately cost area to live in. If you try to find a place to live in downtown Nashville, you're going to be paying significantly higher prices that could rival some places in California, I think. But no, I would say this is a very low cost area. I'd lived in Washington State prior to moving here, and we found a place for less than half of what it would have cost a similar place in Washington 6 years ago.
Now,
so
when you were going through your military transition or through your experience, were there such a thing as building wealth, kind of like, you know, what this great support that Tyrone offers?
Well, back in the 80s, when I was 80s and 90s, there were organizations that were trying to help service members. A lot of them were founded by veterans that were trying to teach financial awareness and some financial skills. A lot of them were focused on things that you know, if you took their advice and applied it, then you know you were in a better shape. But yeah, I think it's always going to be a challenge. I mean, as you, Laura, mentioned earlier, that having that getting that 6 months of reserves built up when you're living paycheck to paycheck is nearly impossible for folks. And I started out as an officer, and I know it was much harder for my enlisted soldiers.
Absolutely. Now, Tyrone, what can we do, given that the current stage of our, you know, economy, our workforce development, the few opportunities that currently small businesses struggling? How can we take small steps to start building some of those best practices for wealth building?
Well, you have to start using the tax code to your advantage. And the best way to do that is become a small business owner. And I know that seems out of reach for the average person, but if they understood, they spent time and got the education, got the information and literacy, they realized that they can literally start a business for about $200, $300 a month. I mean, you know, they can run their business by starting with $200 and run it for $300 a month. But the tax savings that they're going to get on the back end and the wealth accumulation that they're going to get from their business is tremendous. And so, again, you don't have to worry about, you know, trying to save 6 months for an emergency when your business is generating enough income every single month to pay your mortgage, to pay your
Right.
car payment. And so those expenses are already taken care of. So now you're just living your life. You're running your business. You're managing your business. And the reason I like working with veterans is because they have that discipline. They have that intestinal fortitude, and they don't allow the fear to stop them. They feel the fear, but you overcome it by doing what you need to do anyway.
Absolutely. And no one knows it better than our CEO here. That is primarily why you created this, and you do this, small business classes all the time, which you have one coming up soon. And you create this amazing environment where small businesses, like Tyrone is mentioning, that's the path to wealth and building that security and the consistent income for you.
Well, absolutely. I mean, and just to really quickly, I think as a veteran or even an active duty or spouse or any family member, especially nowadays, it requires creativity, out of the box thinking, because if we put all the eggs in one basket, this is employment, or we put all the eggs in one basket, this is a business, that basket may flow away. So having multiple sources of income is very, very smart. And because we don't know what's going to happen to one of those. So I think we're going to be working more closely with Tyrone and to see how we can help our veteran community create multiple sources of income, because and help those people, because I strongly believe that anyone with the discipline could create that reserve. With that reserve, I mean, everyone has a reserve. You have to have a reserve. And you, even the money's coming in, you have to have a reserve at some point, whether it's 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, whatever. Because fixing a car, whether you are in Indiana, Louisiana, Idaho, or California, is expensive to fix your car. So multiple ways to create the stream to build that reserve. And I don't believe in emergencies, to be honest with you. The credit cards are not for emergencies. Savings is not for emergencies. It's for planning. But again, that's a different topic that we'd like to discuss that with Tyrone and bring Tyrone on board and go over more of that, because I do believe that our military, our veterans, and the community at large will benefit tremendously with information like this.
Absolutely.
But
So
thank
stay
you, Laura.
tuned for part 3.
Part 3.
Part 3. That will be part 3.
1, 2, 3.
Yes. So this is part 1.
How would you count? 1,
There will
2,
be a
3.
second where we actually get to talk to Tyrone and pick his brain and get to know, really infuse into
Absolutely.
his wealth of knowledge about money making and wealth creation and everything else, and most importantly, security. So, but without further ado, we're going to get ready to wrap it up. I just want to acknowledge once again, retired Army Lieutenant Colonel Dennis Schroeder. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dennis.
Joining us. He's the founder of the Price of Freedom Foundation. And we want to make sure that everyone knows that what an incredible work and activity they're doing out there. And this is actually virtually. So if anybody out there has a need to reach out, his foundation tells the complete life story of those who pay the ultimate price for our freedom. So make sure that you connect at the Price of Freedom Foundation. And then, of course, we had Trevor French, who unfortunately, because of video quality, we were not able to see him, but we heard a little bit of what he has to say. He has a great program for service members to build wealth, and he's a business owner, an investor, a philanthropist, and he is a really great U.S. Navy veteran to be connected with, so that you can then begin your path towards financial security, as well as just simply living a little bit at a better quality of life. So thank you so much for watching. This is the weekly Veteran Radio Show, where we feature military spouses, veterans, and all those community leaders who are making it happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you.
Thank you.